Hello class, welcome back in our online discussion on this course, Thesis Writing. This is your instructor, Sir Jikans. So we will discuss on the overview of chapter 2, and I will discuss on the presentation, analysis, and interpretation of data. So in this chapter, we will present the elements and the concepts of presenting, analyzing, and interpretation of data to answer the specific problems posited in chapter 1 of the study. So there must be an alignment on your presentation, analysis, and interpretation of the data on the statement of the problem found in chapter 1. Before we will proceed to the specific discussion, we will have a review on the process for the thesis writing. So in the last semester, you have a proposal hearing. After having this proposal hearing, you need to revise the SOP and the questionnaire. And after you revise the SOP and the questionnaire, you distribute the questionnaire to the respondents. And then you computed the data that you have gathered on the after you have distributed the questionnaire. So you are done with this process. So you are now proceed to the chapter 2. Okay, you are done analyzing. You are done with the computation of the data. And we also have discussed the proper format of the table. So you will proceed now to the analysis and interpretation of the data, which we are going to discuss in this lecture. So after you have analyzed and interpreted the data, you will proceed to chapter 3, and you need to finish the conclusion and recommendations and propose action plan if applicable, and then the advisor will check your paper. And for the English critic, and you have your revision before checking of the English critic, and then you need to print the manuscript for the panel members to review, and then you are ready for the oral defense. So once again, let us all finish strong. Do not give up. All the members and leaders also must collaborate with each other, and you need to work it out in order to finish strong. So now let's proceed to the presentation of the data. So in our previous discussion, I have given instruction on how to compute the frequency, the percentage, the weighted mean, which is the common formula for interpreting the data or computing the data. So you are done with the presentation of the data via table, and now we will discuss on the statements or the discussion that you will put in chapter 2. So this part will present the data gathered and the information obtained that you have gathered all the data. And you will begin your result section with general statement. Okay? In the upper part of the table, you need to have a general statement or overview of the chapter 2, or overview of the specific table. So the general statements mean something to it must have something to the reader. Then as necessary, you need to support this statement with appropriate figures. So after the general statement, you will proceed to the appropriate figures or the tables. Now, the narrative portion of the section should stand on its own tables, as I have discussed. Other study have these charts, but for us, we commonly use the tables. And also the other illustrations, and should only verify or elaborate points made in the text. So you need to show the results in words. So you are done with providing the data in the table, and now you are going to put it into a statement form or paragraph form. So you need to show the result in words. Show the result in words, not in digit or data. And also you need to augment it with a few numbers as possible, and you need to refer the interested reader to the more detailed presentation of the table. So if you choose to present your results by writing, the results are summarized in the table, and you should guide your reader through the table. And you need to highlight the trend, range of values, and other interesting aspects. So in our in Viso Unified format, we usually highlight the highest weighted mean, for example, and the lowest weighted mean, or highest frequency and the lowest frequency. So we will discuss that later on. So the important thing that you need to remember, again, in the upper part of the table, there must be a general statement. And then you will provide the table that you already done in the previous assignment. And after showing the data in the table, you need to have this statement. And what is in the statement? You need to highlight the trend, range of values, and other interesting aspects. In our case, we will highlight the highest and the lowest weighted mean. And then we will do the inverted inverted pyramid on the discussion. So we will talk on that in the next slides. So there are three important things that we need to remember. First, we need to start with a brief introductory paragraph and giving the purpose of the data in the table. Same with my previous discussion. In the previous slides, we need to put the general statement. Okay, so in the upper part of the table, there must be a brief introductory paragraph. Number 2, after the table, you need to follow it with the statement. So you need to show the data in words. Okay, you need to show the data in words, presenting the table itself. And for the number 3, lastly, you need to analyze and interpret the findings therein. So these are the 3 important things that you need to remember in analyzing and interpreting the data. First, again, so that you can still remember, in the upper part of the table, there must be a brief introductory. After the table, you need to follow it with a statement. You will just state what is shown in the table. Okay, you will just state what is shown in the table. And after this statement, you need to analyze and interpret the data. Okay, so your statement is based on the data that is shown in the table, but in the analysis, it is in your own words, as well as the interpretation. To strengthen your claim, you need to also add the other literature to back up your claim. Okay, you need to analyze and then interpret what is the meaning of this data. What is the meaning of this data? So first, we will also talk about what is in the analysis and interpretation. So we'll go back to the previous slides. Again, in the upper part of the table, there must be a brief introductory. After the table, there must be a statement, okay, presenting the table itself. You just restate what is in the table. And after that, this is the very challenging in analyzing and interpreting the data. There's no problem in the chapter 1 on the related literature, because some of you will just copy and paste. But on this part, in the analysis and interpretation, it must be in your own words, based on the table. So we'll discuss what are the important things in the analysis and interpretation of the data. So in this discussion, part should be present the principles, relationships, and generalization shown by the results. Okay, so the results need to compare and interpret in previous published works. Again, so that we can still remember in the previous slides, after the table there must be a statement. Now let's take a look on the actual paper or sample paper so that we can easily relate on my discussion. So for example, in table number 1, as we can observe here, we have an introductory part. First, there is a general statement on the chapter 2. For example, in this chapter, the results of the respondents' assessment were presented and interpreted with their implications. There are 2 parts presented in this chapter. The first part presents the respondents' profile regarding their name, age, and section. The second part reveals the perceptions of the respondents regarding the challenges of laboratory-based education in terms of cognitive skills, learning skills or competencies, laboratory, physical facilities, and laboratory instructors management. So this is the example of the general statement. Okay, general statement or the brief introductory paragraph. So there is a brief introductory paragraph in the whole chapter 2. Okay, one brief introductory paragraph for chapter 2. And below is an example of table number 1. There is also a brief introductory paragraph for the table number 1. Again, in the upper part, brief introductory for the whole chapter 2. Below were the brief introductory part of the table number 1. For example, this part shows the respondent's profile, which includes their age, sex, and section. The respondent's demographic profile is an important aspect of administrative research, as the nuances of managerial decisions vary with changes in the demographic variables. So the data is presented in table number 1. So this is the example of the first part, which is I discussed a while ago about the start with a brief introductory paragraph giving the purpose of the data in the table. So again, brief introductory part as a whole in chapter 2, and below were the brief introductory part of the table number 1. After the brief introductory part of table number 1, we have the presentation of the data in a table. Okay, there's a presentation of the data in a table. After the table, we have, as I have mentioned a while ago, we need to follow it with the statement presenting the table itself. So it is a statement based on the table. Okay, for example, the table above shows the respondents' profile according to their age. Most respondents have age 21 years and above with the frequency of so on and so forth. So they're just put a statement on the table above. So let's proceed to the third part. Lastly, analyze and interpret the findings therein. So we will check here if there is a interpretation, analysis and interpretation. Okay, so I will highlight here with the yellow. The table above shows the respondent's profile according to the age, and most of the respondents have age 21 years and above with a frequency of 94 or 65.28% of the population. So this part is an example of, cannot highlight, so I'll just draw a line here. So this yellow line shows the statement presenting the table itself. This just represent or mention the statement, what is written in the table. And now for the part 3, analyze and interpret the findings therein. So we'll check if there's any analysis and interpretation. Okay, so I will highlight with the or draw with a red color for the analysis. So the findings imply that most respondents are early adulthood. Okay, this is the stage of life when most people complete their education and likely to begin a career or take a full-time job. So in this stage also, many people have their own child and start a family. So this is an example of analysis and interpretation of the findings. Okay, so this is the process, or this is the sequence of the interpretation and analysis of the data. So the first statement must be the statement presenting only the table. So they just mention what is written on the table. And the next part would be the analysis and the interpretation of the data. So let's check with the other table. This is for the respondent's profile. Now we will check on the table 2, because for the table 1 it is only for percentage and frequency. So now let's proceed to the weighted mean. So in the weighted mean, or table number 2, we will read the analysis and the interpretation of the data. Table 2 shows that the perception of respondents regarding the challenges of laboratory-based educations in terms of cognitive skills, the subcomposite means of 2.71 denotes moderately challenged. Okay, on this matter, students somewhat. Okay, on this part, this is only the statement presenting the table. And then for the red color, we will highlight here the analysis and the interpretation. Okay, so this is the interpretation. So again, on this other part, I also discuss about the we need to highlight the trend, range of values, and other interesting aspects. So I discussed a while ago that we need to highlight the highest and the lowest. So we can observe here, based on the above, we'll just have an erasure here. Okay. Based on the above indicators, most students are financially unstable, which got the highest weighted mean of 3.01. So you can observe that they highlighted the highest. Okay, they highlighted the highest. I'll have an erasure here. Okay, draw. They only highlighted the highest weighted mean of 3.01. And again, this part is only the statement. Okay, the second part, this one, followed with a statement presenting the table itself. And then for the 3, analysis and interpretations of the findings, we will use the yellow color here. It means, so this part would be the analysis and interpretation of the data. It means that the students are struggling with finances and worried on how to afford the expensive requirements needed in laboratories. So this is already an analysis and interpretation of the data. This one or this one. Financially unstable. Regarding lack of support from family, teachers, and friends, this indicator got the lowest weighted mean. So they highlighted also not just the highest, but also the lowest weighted mean. This one, lowest weighted mean, and this is the highest weighted mean. So they highlighted the highest and the lowest weighted mean. Lowest weighted mean of 2.26. Again, this is also only a statement based on the table, and this part will be the interpretation of the data. It means that many of the respondents disagreed on the said indicator, and they feel like they are supported by their family, teachers, and friends, and having this kind of support are greatly impacts their performance, develop their skills, and always prepared for work laboratory activities. So this is the sequence. Again, there is a statement, okay, this red color, and then the yellow color will be the analysis and the interpretation, and we highlight the highest and the lowest weighted mean. After highlighting the highest and lowest weighted mean, we also have discussed a while ago that we need to results need to compare and interpret in previous published works. So you need to back up your claims with the previous published works. That is why you can observe here that there is a literature. Okay, this part. According to Elliott et al. 2017 and Erickson et al. 2018, students' family support, including family socioeconomic status, parental support, parental expectations, and family social material resources, affects the development of learning competencies and learning motivation. So your claim or your interpretation of your data based on this indicator cognitive skills, you back up it with the related literature. Okay, so this is your interpretation, and the previous published works will support your claim. Okay, so it is important that you need to include a related literature to support your claims, to support your interpretation that you have written here. Okay, so for the recap, again, you need to put an introductory part before the table. So in this case, I have not seen any. This is the correction for this manuscript. There must be an introductory part before the presentation of the table number 2, this table. So there must be a brief introductory part of the table number 2. And then after that, this is the number 1. Number 2, you need to present your data in a table form. Okay? You need to show the data in the table form. Number 3, you need to state, okay? You need to state, or this word statement, presenting the table itself. So that is for number 3. Okay, you will just present or put the statement based on the table, on table above. Okay, that is for number 3. Number 4 is the analysis and interpretation of the data. So we will put an arrow here. So this is missing one. 1, the brief introductory part. 2, the table. 3, statement. Okay, what is written or what is the data mentioned in the table that is presenting on the table. And number 4 is the analysis and interpretation of the data. What are these analysis and interpretation of the data? This highlighted yellow. It means that the students are struggling, etc. So that is the interpretation and analysis of the data. And then the number 5 important here is the related literature or previous published work. What is the purpose of this putting a published research work? To support your claim, to support your analysis, to support your interpretation of the data. So this 5 part is really important for having a good manuscript. Again, number 1, introductory part of your table. Number 2, the table itself, the data. Number 3, the statement, or you just put the data into words. Okay, that is for number 3. And number 4, the interpretation and analysis of the data. And number 5 is the previous published work that will support your claim, or that will support your interpretation and analysis of your data. So these 5 parts are important in the chapter 2. Okay? And lastly, before I forget the other important reminders that you need to put also in the chapter 2. As I've mentioned a while ago about the inverted pyramid. So as a normal, we need to interpret first the highest. Interpret first the highest, then the lowest, and then the subcomposite mean. But in this case, in our format that we follow, we will put first the statement with regards to the subcomposite mean. Okay, again, number 1 is the subcomposite mean, number 2 is the highest, and number 3 is the lowest. So we will check if we interpret first the subcomposite mean, next the highest, and then the lowest. So we can observe here, table shows the perception of respondents regarding the challenges and of laboratory-based education in terms of cognitive skills. The subcomposite means of 2.71. Okay, so we interpret first the subcomposite mean. Next is the highest. We will find the keyword here. Highest weighted mean of 3.01. Highest. Okay, so we interpret on the second part the highest, and then lastly the lowest weighted mean. Where is the lowest weighted mean? Lowest weighted mean of 2.26. So we have here 2.26. Okay, so that is the arrangement on the presentation of the analysis and interpretation of the data. So we will have a recap here in order for you to remember the important parts of chapter 2. First, you need to put a what? Part 1, the brief introductory about the table number 2. Number 2, the table itself, having this data. Number 3, the statement based on the table presentation. Number 4, the interpretation and analysis of the data. And number 5, a previous published work that will support all your claims, or that will support your analysis and interpretation of the data. And another thing, we will start with the analysis and interpretation of the data in the subcomposite mean, and second one is the highest, and then the third one is the lowest. So we use here the word subcomposite mean. Okay, that is the total mean for every indicator. What is the indicator for table number 2? Cognitive skills. Okay, we will check the questionnaire on this sample study. The first indicator is cognitive skills. So after this 5, we have subcomposite mean. Next indicator is learning skills and competencies. So after computing this one, there is a subcomposite mean. The third indicator is laboratory physical facilities. After this number 5, we have the subcomposite mean, etc. and etc. So after interpreting all the tables I have mentioned in all the indicators, we will summarize the data. So we will check here. So they have table number 6. Summary of the students' perceptions regarding the challenges of the laboratory-based education. So these are the indicators. So they have this. These are the subcomposite mean. So the total of all the subcomposite mean is called composite mean. So same process or same sequence of the statements. We will start with the subcomposite mean. So meaning you need to put also here the brief introductory part, table 2, okay, that is number 2, and number 3 the statement that will represent the tables, and then number 4 is the interpretation and analysis of the data, and then number 5 is the supporting published works. And the same process, we need to start with a composite mean. Okay, composite mean, number 2 is the highest, and then number 3 is the lowest weighted mean. Okay, and don't forget to follow the sequence of the statement. So your 2.1 is the cognitive skills, 2.2 is the learning skills, so you need to follow the arrangement. So we will check again in the slides. So I've mentioned here that we need to follow the arrangement of the specific problems posited in chapter 1. So we need to follow this sequence. We will start with the respondent's profile. Under that, we have age, that is the next one. We have also sex and section. Third is the cognitive skills, learning, etc., so on and so forth. So after listening on this short discussion and explanation, you need to upload in the Google Classroom the results of your chapter 2. Okay? So you need to follow the 5 parts, and it must be in a right sequence. First is the brief introductory in the whole chapter 2. Under that is the brief introductory of table number 1. And then below that, they have this table. Okay? And then next is the statement representing the table. And then next is the analysis and interpretation of the data. After the analysis and interpretation of the data, there must be a backup of a previous published work that will support your claims, or that will support your interpretation of the data. And then don't forget that you need to interpret first the subcomposite, next is the highest, and next is the lowest. So you are done with the previous assignment about the computations of the percentage, computations of the weighted mean, and you already done also with the proper format of the table. And then in this assignment, or in this part, you need to submit the whole chapter 2. Okay, so you have, I will give you 2 weeks to finish this assignment. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to comment on the comment section in the YouTube, or you can also drop your questions or queries in our group chat. Okay, so thank you and enjoy learning. Bye bye.